Okay, got it. So first off, thank you all for being here. It's pleasant of having these two wonderful guests, which between two of them have just about every license or title that Scrum Alliance can provide. With us, we first off have our newest addition or our guest. So Angel here, he has like 15 and more experience of hands-on as coach with the organizations and with the staff. He is a certified enterprise coach and a certified Scrum trainer. And basically, he knows the thing inside and out. And here, we have Miloš Zeković, aka Zeka, somebody who I wouldn't say is our guest. He is more of our, let's say, extended crew. So it's pleasure of seeing you here. Maybe I believe the third time or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe the third.
Now that you're counting.
Not that I'm counting, but again, always pleasure having you here. And Zeka is a certified team coach. You're the only one currently in this. No, one of
No, there's three of us.
Three?
Okay. Yep. Serbia started to rock in the Eastern Europe. I think half of us are now are from Serbia.
I wasn't counting that fast, so I'm slow. So first of the three then, certified team coaches, and also a cognitive behavioral coach. So somebody with a lot of experience there. And that's more or less it. Thank you very much for being here. How are two of you doing?
Thank you. Doing well here, providing that I slept 2 hours tonight. I just landed from Dubai. As some of you know, and I'm here now in Barcelona. So I believe I could use at least 60% of my cognitive capacity, providing the current conditions. And I hope I can make the best use possible of the Wi-Fi of this hotel. Yeah. So thank you very much for the invitation. It's my pleasure to be here.
And thanks for having us, and special thanks for Angel, because I'm sure this was a hell to orchestrate even without even with a full time of sleep. I'm also a little bit tired, but I know that the adrenaline will kick in, so I will cover if needed. I do vouch for Angel as a very energetic guy. You maybe will not see that today as much.
No, but, you will.
But let's see when it kicks in. Yes. Yeah. So maybe just a few words in kind of what we wanted to have today, and it's primarily conversations. We will share a few stories. I'll offer a few sneak peeks into something that I've done with banks, and just kind of to kick it off, so you guys have more ideas of what do you want to ask us, and please use that. Angel has insane amount of experience in banks, in ING, so we are here to share all that lasted for several years. Integrated experience of Agile and coaching. So please feel free to ask us. Our hosts will look for the questions. So I'll leave that part for Bogdan and Biljana to explain if needed. We will also share. Well, I will share a mural board. If anyone wants to also put questions in there or in chat, however you like it. And also Biljana and Bogdan will follow that too. And as soon as we are ready, we can kick it off.
Actually, something that was coming to my mind that make sense, you know, to open a little bit of hunger on people and expectations. I was kind of listing the banks that I work for during all these years. So, okay, does it make sense if we list the banks, or should I list the banks? Because maybe it makes sense.
If you have permission.
Yeah. So I was thinking as a Scrum Master. So I'm talking about 2006 to 2007. I was working actually also in banking, and I work in Italy mainly for Banco Intesa Sao Paulo, Unicredit, Ubibanca, Monte dei Paschi di Siena. And then I moved to Spain back, and I started working for ING, where I started Agile in ING back in 2009, first in ING Spain, and later as the first the first chairman of the International Agile Expert Group for 4 years, where I helped ING in different countries, including, by the way, Australia, and the UK, and Netherlands, and Belgium, and Italy, and France, and Turkey, and Poland, and well, I would say like 16 different branches. And then later I was again listing all the banks: Sabadell, BNP Paribas, Banco de Chile, Banco de la Provincia de Buenos Aires. Yesterday I was in a bank, Emirates NBD, in Dubai, First Abu Dhabi Bank, Falabella Financiero. What else? BBVA, Santander. What else? I was listing. I'm sure that some of them, they are still.
For me, it's already
Bankia.
Wow. I expected like 5 or 6.
I don't know. No. Actually, many of these banks. I would say Banco de Chile. I don't know if I mentioned already, but yeah, quite a bit of experience in banking, I would say.
Very nice. I'm a more recent to banks. I have more actual experience in insurance industry, but in many regards they're similar. So I have 3 years experience in an insurance tech startup from San Francisco. That's also has offices in Belgrade. I'm currently also working with Generali, but the Serbian branch, so not the bigger
Italian one.
Yeah, not the international one. And 2 banks more that I cannot name. I didn't get the permission yet for that. But both of them are international. One is both of them are with partners Grow It. And one of those, my partners did such a good thing in Serbia that the international from Vienna asked us to help. And the other one is also international, but again, it's just at the beginning, so it's only the Serbian part of the bank for now. What I can say is that in both banks, when they hear ING, they are, oh yes, they are the inspiration, and Angel working there, and not just at any position, right? I think that's something that we can also share different experiences from those and really draw the lines maybe where it's very, very similar, and maybe some other cultural aspects are a little bit different. But in any regard, I would say financial sector is financial sector, right? It has many things that are in common. And I would say when we talk about, especially in this community, we've talked about a lot the resistance when you can't change something, if they are stuff that you cannot change. And finance sector is really very rich with things you can't change or seemingly can't change, or that's completely out of the scope of the organization. So we wanted to maybe share a little bit of how do we deal with those things inside of banks as agile coaches. And some of those are just even national regulations that you really can't do anything about. You need to approach it from a different angle. Okay, so maybe we can kick off with a few stories. Angel, do you want to start, or shall I?
Yeah, sure. Okay, more than the stories, I think it makes sense to start from what makes banking different, So what makes banking different? Because I believe that the need of agility is strictly related to the business domain in which you are working. Yeah. So, and particularly with the speed in which you acquire or you can lose a customer. Yeah. Historically, in banking, acquiring or losing a customer was a very slow process. You know, sometimes in the past, it was so painful to change your mortgage to another bank that you would rather have a terrible experience with your bank just not to change the mortgage to another one. Also, not only about the painful change, it's also about the costly change you will need to face. So that means that banking in the past was very relaxed. Relaxed, why? Because it's slow-paced business in terms of interaction with the customer, how you acquire and how you lose the customers. What sustained a bank in time is size. This is what sustained a bank in the past. Yeah, the size. I have a lot of money, so I can use my financial engineering to still be profitable, even if I'm not necessarily very effective with my resources. Yeah. So, and it's clear that comparing the budget that, for example, with a bank can dedicate to IT with the amount of money that a bank can have, providing the amount of customers that these banks have, is marginal. Yeah. So if the budget for IT in an average bank can be around 10 million euros per year, it's a very plausible number compared to the number of customers that you might have in a bank of such size. That would be easy, let's say minimum 5 million customers. Yeah, I have these numbers, but I'm not going to tell you from which banks are these numbers. So that would mean just 2 euros per year per customer. Yeah, so you can even replicate their whole IT and have this new organization doing nothing, and it still is going to be cost effective. Yeah. So the second problem that banks have is that they have money. And as they have a lot of money, they believe that they can afford not being effective with the use of their resources. They believe that they can do anything they want. Nope. But so that the fact that you have money to create product doesn't mean that you can deal with the complexity. Or also, it doesn't mean that that would make your customers stay with you. And on top of that, it doesn't mean that the customer really needs a new product or really needs a new feature in the system. So what happened when a company has so many resources and can afford relying on their size? What happened is that people tend to work for their boss instead of working for their customer. They can afford to work for the boss. Means I'm going to build something nice, build something fancy, so I will show to my boss, I will play the politics inside, and I will grow within the company. And nobody's going to really realize that this is not being used by the customer. Nobody's going to be looking what is the impact on our business. Instead, I'm going to be well considered within the company. So this is something that is in a smaller business, or in a business in which we can see how this brings customers, or how the customers are being lost because of the lack of adaptation of our experience to their needs. Yeah, in a place in where we can't see this, we can afford playing the other game. We can afford working for our boss. You know? And this is a very one story that it makes sense for me to share. When I was in ING, I'm talking back in 2012, it got, like relevant. The Agile movement, and the CEO at the time, Werner, he asked in a very big meeting, was 300 of us. He asked me, he said, what is Angel here? Hello. He asked me, what should we do in this bank to become more agile? And what he said is, we need these 300 people to stop working for you and work for the customer, or to understand the customer, to respond to the needs, not to respond to requests of the boss. Yeah. So this is something that is particularly relevant. This happens in many big companies, but I think in banking is even more. What is happening though is that the banking business is shifting. Every time, size is not a guarantee for the continuity of a bank. we've seen big banks being absorbed lately. And it's going to still happening. Why? Because there are a lot of financial services available for customers. Now, this speed of acquiring or losing a customer for specific financial services is speeding up. So the size of the bank is not a guarantee anymore for the continuity of the bank. So this is something that is, I think, is particularly relevant in this moment, and it's a message, it's a key message to give for the people to create this sense of urgency. And we're safe because we're big. We think that being big is enough. We think that having money is enough to be safe, but this is not true because our market position is being damaged due to the big amount of alternatives that the customer have. So this is a migration of the business domain. It's a mutation of the business domain. So how about you, Miloš? Do you have any story you want to share?
Yeah,
Just to
I'm more at the back of the line. So when I was asked in the banks, they were already figuring out, oh, we have a problem, right? And one of the teams I'm currently working in, they have the goals of those teams. So it's a team out of 3 teams, right? And their goal is around payroll. So how to acquire new customers to get the payroll in the bank, how to not lose customers who have the payroll, and figuring out how and why are they using it, when are they using it, under which factors, right? And the third one is, how do I activate a client that's already here, but it's not using the payroll, right? The payroll is not in the bank. And what I very often hear is we have to be more customer centric. We need to go out in the market, see what is there. We need to have very fast marketing campaigns. We need to increase the conversion rates of our marketing campaigns. We need to have data so we can make better decisions around that. And that's, the need that we see generating from others, so from one side, and from the other side, it's still emerging that when they want to get people who can actually help them to do that, that they are outside of banking sector, that you are now competing with IT companies if you want to actually have people that can help you do this. And in the age of digitalization, right, and especially in Serbia, we have a huge pressure because there's not a lot of people that can actually do that stuff, let alone UX, customer X, and all other I would say more exotic job titles in the Balkan market, but they're still, I would say, still very new job titles, even in other areas. And yes, I also have seen the pressure for, no, don't work for me, forget about my problem is that everybody is listening to the boss. That was actually articulated as a problem inside of the bank. And the similar thing I'm also seeing in insurance. Especially when they need to get talents from IT, but also figuring out that the input and output isn't good anymore. The balance is shifting and they need to automate, digitalize, be more agile in order to just continue with that, because they also have a burst of new products in insurance that's a little bit different, right? But they need to look at that. But also, being in an insurance startup, what was interesting there is that the sense of urgency was very, very strong, right, from the get-go, and it needed to be externally validated that we are actually doing something from the customer and actually doing something in the market, and that's in a very heavily regulated industry. And just how much regulated it can be. I've seen a questionnaire to get insurance if you're producing cannabis in US, and that's a huge amount of paper that requires huge amount of things that you can't really do anything about, but somehow you need to improve the customer experience there, and somehow you need to go in and get that market. So I would say I'm kind of on the more ending wave of what Angel mentioned, but I'm feeling it faster in that terms, and what I really find very healthy, I would say, is that the leadership in banks is aware of it. They are aware. They're starting to talk about it. They're starting to talk about something that's more traditionally reserved for more market-oriented, faster, smaller companies. So customer satisfaction, how much do they weight? Employee satisfaction also. And there was a very interesting conversation that I had with one bank, because they came to conclusion that they might need more a youthful workforce, somebody who's a little bit more tolerant towards the change and fast pace that they need to create, and likes to be more collaborative and doesn't just listen to the boss, right? But on the other hand, they have this issue with the market that because of mergers with the banks, there's a lot of workforce available. So if they want to get a talent, it's not very attractive to get somebody in the bank, especially if they are younger. So there's also an internal struggle within the banking system to understand okay, if I do have a lot of pool of workers available for me, why would I raise benefits of any kind to get more people in, right? If it's right there. So again, there's this we are still good kind of thing in certain aspects of the company, and then in the other aspects that are a little bit more visionary and a little bit more in the leadership, they see that there is an issue there. But then in such a huge system, you have a lot of internal regulations that you would need to change, and a lot of I would say different powerhouses. So if you do need to change something like incentives or bonuses or salaries or just the more general offering, you often need to go very high up, and it's often a very, very long process. But it's very interesting for me to see that, and I think we are now touching a little bit more on how do we deal with some of these constraints. And what I found very helpful is first that when you do have a constraint, or when you do have a regulation, that the first question is it a legally binding a regulation from a national entity like a national bank that you really can't do anything about? You can maybe just be smart around how do you fulfill it, but you can't really change it. Or is it an internal regulation, and to what extent can you change it, and with whom? So I found that conversations in bank to be very interesting, and to just come to the conversation like that. Not that this is bad, you can't do agile with these restrictions, but okay, let's see what can be done, how can it be done, and especially piloting and experimenting or a smaller number of branches maybe can be very helpful in creating the snowball effect in how do you actually deal with this. But I would say it begins with accepting that there is a limit, there is a regulation, there is something that's unmovable, and then it turns into a creative process. So how do you actually deal with that in reality, and how do you make that? Sometimes in coaching we say, what's the first step? That's often what we say. It's kind of like, what's the first step towards that goal? But I would say that especially in this situations, it's not what's the first smaller goal, it's what's the third option, right? If I have a clear agile option that is not aligned with this regulation, and I have a regulation that's clearly not making me do something very agile or fast or client oriented, how do I engage with the customer to create the third solution? So something new that can work with this system. Angel, you're muted.
Thank you. I like to say something about this regulation part, yeah, and from my experience, when the regulation word comes into the picture, well, in my experience, we should be a little bit careful. Why am I saying this? So first, talking about transformations, when I was in ING, I had something in my interpretation of the reality. That this was the day in which I go to the CEO or the CEO of the bank, and I convince her she's gonna make the big order. She will come tell everybody to go this way, work this way, go agile, and everybody will be happy and everybody will love me. Yeah, that was my interpretation. So I went to talk to the CEO of the bank one day. Finally, I found the courage, knock on her door, explain her about agile. She liked the idea very much. And I was like, yeah, now it's done. She's gonna order everybody to do agile and agile will be a reality. And she told me, look, Angel, this sounds great, but I can't tell people to do this. I was like, why? You're the big boss. You're supposed to be able to do that. And she said, yes, it's true. But if I tell people to do this thing, if it's convenient for them, they're going to pretend they are doing it just because it's convenient for them. And if it's not convenient for them, they are going to sabotage. They're going to sabotage. They're going to say it's not going to work. So, and in both cases, we're not going to get any effects. It's not actually going to get any results. And I told her, so then what should I do? And she told me, well, exactly the same thing as you did with me. You came here, explained it to me. I like it. I want to try. Support me. And I mean, and I said, yes, but it's 1,500 people here. And she told me, yes, you have a lot of work. You better go. So this is to say that when they change. So first, I believe that we should consider that we all have hidden purposes. You know, we all have hidden purposes in our company. You know, that are not strictly related all the time with the business goals, and maybe with personal goals. Those are there. Those are present. Yeah. People are going to, of course, to respect those personal goals first. Yeah. If whatever you propose me goes against my personal goals, I'm going to sabotage. If whatever you present me, it will go good for my personal goals, I will pretend it works fast as possible. So what happened? A way of sabotaging is the smoke cloud, like ninja, you know. And if you guys been the developer, you know what is a technical smoke cloud is. No, this is super deep. You know, if we change this, the universe is going to implode. So better don't touch this piece of code. It's in the core banking. In banks, you say core banking, and it's like, oh, it's a core banking. Oh, then it's going to be very difficult. No, don't touch it. They are all going to disappear if you touch there. No, be careful, very careful. Only the expert. So you can say core banking, or you can say regulation. So regulation. Remember these games that you play with your kids that you chase each other, and you have to touch the other person, and you're going to say, core banking. Now you can touch me. No, regulation. Yeah. So jokes aside, in my experience, sometimes when people say regulation, they really don't know what they mean. They really don't know what is the regulation. So my advice for you guys, what I learned to do is when they say regulation, let's go and look at the regulation. Let's go and look what the actual regulation is saying. Let me give you a practical example that happened in one bank. We say that we need use cases for any change we do in this bank. And for any change within this bank, we need the name of the person that ordered this change, the use case associated, the lines of code that were changed, and the signature of the person that put that into production. Everything should be traceable all the time. And otherwise, regulation is broken. You can't break regulation. If you actually go, and it's actually what we did in that bank, you actually go and look for the regulation. What it says that is just it says that it needs to be clear who committed the change, and it needs to be clear how this change works. It doesn't say which format. Use case was not written anywhere. And if we have an automated test system level that describes how the system works, it's also valid for the regulation. So just with good system automated testing that describe always in an updated way how the system works, and you have a versioning system, versioning system that controls who is committing which change and who is actually committing that documentation, which is a test case or is a automated system test. You actually are way more traceable, way more compliant with that regulation, just using a different instrument. Yeah, and on top of that, of course, that saves millions over time. So when people say regulation, go find your friends in the compliance department and read these regulations. You might be surprised because in general, those regulations do not mention specific instruments, mention requirements. Yeah. So be careful with the small cloud of regulation. Another example about that is also the regulatory projects. Like everything should be done. Everything should be done. It's regulatory. Yeah, people close their eyes and they say it should be done because it should be done. But actually, this is not going to convince anybody. Yeah, because it doesn't make any sense. It should succeed because it should succeed. Otherwise, I'm going to be angry at you. We're going to pay a penalty. Yeah, our vendors are going to pay a penalty if they don't succeed. On what? We don't know, but they have to succeed. Everything has to be done. Of course, the vendor say, I need the money. So I will say yes. And then we'll figure out what to do later. I will negotiate not to get the penalty later. Yeah. An example of that, let's say we have a regulatory project, no? For example, SEPA-like, no? You see, SEPA has to be done because it has to be done. People close their eyes, they keep it done. No. So, but the question is, what if not? What if it's not done? What is the feature, or what is the part of the regulation that actually would create the biggest negative impact in your business? Say, for example, money laundering. Forget about the rest. Project money laundering. No, but no, forget it. Stop starting, start finishing. You know how does it work? So a smaller version of the SEPA regulation is this money laundering. Is that something that we can deliver in 3 more or less? No, it's too big. Okay, so within money laundering, what is the riskiest, most impactful problem that we can have? Let's say non-reliable countries transactions. Okay, so project non-reliable countries transaction. And again, you ask, what is the country that has a higher risk? I don't know, let's say, for example, Myanmar. So this is your project. This is your scope. Myanmar. Once you fix that, when that piece of the regulation is fully completed, you can go for the next biggest, for the next biggest fine, for the next biggest impact. Yeah. So this is the only way to guarantee that you're actually going to be done with the majority of the regulation. This is applying incremental delivery to a regulation. Yeah. Understand that maybe you don't finish everything. Yeah. But the alternative to this is to have everything done 99%, but not deployed, not accessible, not, of course, not compliant. Yeah. So if you're facing a regulatory project, please use this mindset. Okay, if we get the fine, which is the biggest one? What is going to be the biggest impact? And the rest we do later. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, especially when I work with banks. It's one of the first mindset shifts that it needs to be addressed. That it's you can actually fail and you can pay the penalty, and it might be completely acceptable to the bank. all time, or maybe most of the time, or the next 3 months. Somehow this maybe even the religion, the doctrine of regulation, that it just must be kept, is something on the flexibility of the mindset that I've seen you just need to work on it. And especially in the banking sector, I've seen that more often than in other areas. It's this black and white picture. It's either everything or it's nothing. And then we don't need agile or incremental or whatever when you need to have it all, and we need exactly, regulation said exactly what we need, so yeah, just use waterfall or something like that. But I'm happy to say that this one place when I worked, and we do have now regulatory, so fiscalization and the electronic invoices, right, just currently happening in Serbia. And one of the clients actually chose an agile team to do the regulatory compliance, exactly because they had the most trust that they will actually do that on time, but also that they will do it in a quality way, and that they know how to attack it piece by piece, rather than going into different areas. And when we did similar in insurance, there was this similar questions of, okay, what type of insurances would hit you the most if you cannot get an electronic invoice out? And then let's talk about those, and let's prioritize them. Let's make one of them work, and then try to build a super fancy generalized solutions might work for everybody else. Also very similar to what Angel said around checking what the regulation is and what the actual requirement is. I still remember for iOS things. So for those standards, it often, some of the consultants, they're very rigid in how do they apply it, instead of just exactly asking, okay, what needs to happen, right? Rather than your interpretation of what the regulation is. So you go back to the source, and then you see what it is, and then you just might find out that, I don't know, maybe Scrum already has that. You just need to say, well, that actually happens at review, at sprint review. So here, checked, it's actually happening. Or I don't know, we have a backlog of those things, and in those backlog, we do have risk here and here. So everything is actually identified. You can look in our definition of that, it just captured everything, right? In that regard, and I really like that approach because it gets you very creative in terms of, and the team gets very engaged because you say, okay, yes, here it is. And how can you use what you already have and not build on top of things? Just reuse, reorganize what you already have with the resources. And that's one of my favorite principles that I learned, first articulated on my last training, is just don't add stuff and add people. Like that's the very least, the last thing you will do, it's that move. Try to do everything else before that, and try to actually simplify and minimize what you need to do at all in all instances before going there. And it goes the same for regulations. And of course, there are some, I would say, when we do talk about regulations and what you can't and what you cannot do, I think it's also very important to kind of accept that there will be some very illogical behaviors in a system that is the bank. So for instance, or anyone in the finance sector. So for instance, as a coach, I could not access Teams in one of the organization. Security, there's some guy somewhere sitting, you can't get in, right? At the same time, I get from the executive committee something that they're document listing the strategy of the company that they will send to a national regulation office. So I can read that, but I cannot access the team chat, the Teams chat, for instance. So it's, and sometimes you need to work with that too. And we kind of made the workaround for some of those things because we didn't have the mandate to actually go in some of those those places, but challenging some of those things, but also being able to just remove the noise and really go at the stuff that really hits this company, and not just be too bothered with these small things that just sound insane, right? Especially in your head, and just kind of focus on the real deal there.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, we finish, and then we might want to move to a different storyline.
Okay,
Oh, yeah. Well, actually,
sorry.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, just one question. I mean, more general question, actually, is not only related for regulation. For me, is interesting, Angel, you mentioned that actually you're dealing with over 1,000 people, actually, in one bank. So I'm interested in how many months you need to actually introduce Scrum or Agile with those non-IT people, I would say.
Well, the thing is, first, of course, it would be a terrible idea to try to do all that work on my own. Yeah. So the first thing that you need is to start to train others so they can do themselves. Even more in a way in which it transcends your time in the bank. Yeah. So I left ING in 2014, and they're still working in that direction. It's already 12 years. Yeah, because there are other people that learn about it, that got excited about it, and then spread the word, and they keep on trying things. You know, actually, my boss at that time, yeah, it was the head of quality, Jose San Roman, amazing person, amazing professional. He actually, I was all the time explaining him about Agile, and he actually became a speaker in a local conference in Agile, Spain. Yeah. So this is when you see that actually impact is happening, as you get the other people becoming experts, becoming relevant in the industry. And this is what I wanted to create there in ING, creating the competencies. Now something that I know is something to be done, create the competence so they themselves, they will spread the word. So how long does it take for a business to get engaged on this? Well, from 1 week to never. I mean, it's something that you can't control. When people get excited about something, when they see that something affects them, when there's this sense of urgency that they understand that I really need to do something about it, I really need to do something in this direction because this is affecting my job, this is affecting my daily life. You know? So, and this is something that is also related, okay, like bottom up, top down, IT first, business first. You actually don't know. You cannot control who is going to decide to be engaged because they decide. So the only thing that you can do is you can try to explain the context, explain the impact, explain the cost that is going to have not to put attention on this for them. And some people will hook. Some people will say, yes, I want to do something about this. And some people will say, no, it's not my moment. So I think it's very important that we understand that when is the resistance to change, this is normal. This is positive. They are just seeing part of the system that you are not seeing. There's half part of the context that you are not aware of. They're taking care of something that for you still is not so relevant. Yeah. So they need their time. How much? It depends on them. Yeah. But in my experience, the worst thing is try to go too fast. Try to go too fast is a bad idea. Try to force people into this is a bad idea. Try to convince is a bad idea. So volunteering, get them to volunteer, to decide, to get excited, and to participate themselves will lead to more results. Because it's something that we need to put a lot of attention on, which is the result we want is not a lot of Scrum teams. The result we want is not everybody saying, yes, we are agile because we use Scrum, we use Kanban, we use this framework, and we use the other. What we want is business result. If the customer of the bank doesn't see the difference, agile is not working, no matter how many Scrum teams you have, right? And the only way to get actual results were people that get excited and they decide to participate themselves. And it's also the results that are going to feed the mindset. That means when some teams are already getting results and those results are visible, more people in the business are going to participate in this because they see the outcome, they see the meaning. If they see just teams saying that they do Scrum, sorry, but it's very unlikely that they get excited. But if I see that the customer recommend us more, that we create new experiences for customer in a more responsive way, as a business person, it's more likely that I would get close to it. I don't know if this answers your question.
Yes, thanks.
Awesome.
And I'd like to point out that this is why we wanted more coaching in Agile, because this approach is not just better, right, but it's also more sustainable. And as Angel was speaking, I remember what happened a day ago, right, because I was starting this first Agile team in this company, and then after 9 months, we started engaging with the leadership to kind of spread the Agile. And what was the motor behind that? Now the problem that they have is that other teams, other people heard how awesome it is to be in an Agile team and what they do. So now they're pressuring the organization to be in Agile teams and to get those benefits and to get those results and that sense of fulfillment, right? So now we are talking about that. And what I witnessed yesterday was, so I was almost not in this organization for 6 months, like very, very lightly, right? And then I heard results of a talk that I had 9 months ago with a certain person. That become integrated into their system. So I just send a few ideas to them, what they might want to do, and you might want to figure out how do you actually do this in your system. And that was the extent of what I talked with a person. And 9 months after that, that's an actual thing that they are doing now. And the head of the sector is talking about that as a super thing, right? And that's something that I couldn't do, going alone, or it would take a lot of time, and I don't have that form of influence in this organization. So that's was possible by that person. And at the same meeting, what I also saw was their first Scrum Master, very energetic, very diligently speaking to one of the heads of the business departments and saying, well, you wanted these projects in IT. You need to give a person to be the product owner. How the hell did you want this to succeed? If you wanted the project, you need to give us the person. So that amount of courage and openness and the energy, I couldn't do that as somebody external. But somebody who really dug into that, they will create that. They will create the second, third, fourth way that will actually create sustainability on the organization a long time before your path. So I'm here now at the maybe mid part of my engagement with this organization, right? But I also fully expect, and sometimes also people see me at the street and they say, we still remember that and that, and we do this and this, and here's what we've done with it. And I think that's a really good extent of how coaching and how success through other people is very powerful in many more ways. So not just in how quickly you are able to impact, but also what you are able to impact. And it also comes with I would say, a huge dose of humility about, I may be the Agile expert, but it's not that I need to be everywhere, that I need to do everything, that everything needs to be right. With me, I can actually work with these people on their mindset, on how do they see things, how do they approach things, and they will bear results that I alone could not help them with. And I think that's one of the really, really big things. And I'm very happy that even in some banks that I'm working, the leadership is very aware of that. So for instance, there was a huge problem around incentives and how people are behaving. And one of the things that the top manager said to me was, yes, but I want people. I don't want managers to create the solution for this. I want people to create the solution for this. And then I said, okay, so let's then engage them. Let's create a workshop. And I will share a few examples of kind of like the outputs of those, and then maybe we can stop for more questions. I think we shared quite a lot of stories, right? I would like to also hear from the other guys. So a first story was this very complicated diagram that I'm not going to explain, and it's not the purpose of explanation. The purpose of this diagram is actually the conversation that you have, that the people have while creating it. That's the point of this diagram. So system dynamic mapping. This organization wanted to have more bottom-up goal settings from the team. That's one of the behavior that they believe will get them to better business results. And they couldn't figure out, or they think they figured out why teams don't want to do it, or not motivated, or gaming it, etc., etc., etc. Right? So I sat with a few managers just to kind of sell them the concept and do that with them, kind of like sense making. So this was created one sticky note at a time. So here's a sticky note. This is some force in the system, some dynamic, I don't know, incentive schema or bonus or diversity in the team, or a certain behavior that the leadership exhibits, right? And then the ask is, how is this impacting the bottom-up approaches within the teams, or some other things in the system? And then we slowly built this. And this was to sell the concept. And in 10 days, we will have this workshop in the bank with the people from the trenches, with the people in management, with people in HR, so that they will all together create this mapping to better understand from all angles what's going to happen here. And then they will all figure out, okay, what kind of experiments do we want to do to try to break some of the dynamics in the systems that we really don't like, or we believe that if we break this, it will lead to better business results. And the other one that I did with the other company was the value stream mapping exercise, especially with external dependencies, because the bank needed to go very fast. And they couldn't wait to get all the people they wanted in the Scrum team. So what they said is like, let's see with the resources that and people available that we have, and we will put this as a priority project in the bank. You have other teams, so you'll need to rely on them. But this was the first time that you pull people from different departments of the bank and put them into a single team, and then ask them, create a campaign and all the accompanying processes from end to finish within 2 weeks, and make it happen, right? With all of these systems. So they needed to map, what does that actually mean to them? And this workshop, in the end, we did it two times for 2 hours, just for all the people in the team to understand the overall how it looks like, and then to figure out what are their next steps, what do they need to do with their data, what do they need to do with other teams, how do they need to engage, who do they need to engage in order for this to happen within 2 weeks time frame. And I found that part very powerful when they worked, and they now have a team room, and the energy was there. And also, at the end of the day, right, they're also looking at the business results, right? So you do need to create the results, not just, as somebody said when they entered the room, like, oh, it's very colorful. Yes, that's what Agile is. Yes, sticky notes and colors, right? But it isn't often what I see as a comment, right? When you look at this from from an outside perspective, you usually see the busyness, right? The sticky notes, that fancy new stuff, right? And that's also why it's very important to have the business results follow, because that's when the other teams will say, oh, we want to do that, or where you will actually get the support from people. And sometimes in one organization, it took us a year to get there. So it took us a year for other stakeholders to recognize that something was a success and to want to engage and to want to inquire, how the hell did you guys do this? And how can we replicate this across the company? And that was from same people that were like, no, Miloš, just no, that's not the reality. That's not how you do it here. I have this budget and I'm not going to give it to you to do this. But in around some 6 months, so 6 months in the project, they started inquiring around it. And then a year after that, we were more talking about, okay, here are some constraints. What do you want to do? How can we do it? And how do you want to take over the transformation from me, so that I'm no longer leading the transformation, but you are leading the transformation. So that's kind of where I am here. In the beginning, they couldn't do that, and they really wanted more hand-holding, let's call it. And I think that's also one of the things that we need to recognize with the customers, is that sometimes we do need to be a little bit more directional. We need to be more mentors or consultants in certain areas. But my personal approach is that overall we should act as coaches. And even when I'm doing that in order to create clarity around what needs to happen, and how can they be independent from me in the long run. Any questions? Discussion?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to say that, remember, guys, so we're here to answer your questions. Yeah, and the most important is for free this time. So use it. Something that was coming to my mind about transformations, in banking and transformation. To be honest, I always a little bit afraid of the word transformation, because if we mean transformation like going from a caterpillar to a butterfly, like metamorphosis, going from a 100 years old bank into a startup, I think, sorry, but it's not going to happen. Yeah, so and sometimes that's the expectation in many places. I will tell you a story. This happened. Okay, this happened in Banco de Chile. It happened in a bank in a bank in Chile. They wanted me to help them with the digital transformation. Yeah, so I flew there to Banco de Chile, and I've seen the environment. The environment was like a more than 100 years old bank. They even had elevator drivers. So it took for them months, and when I say months, like more than 6 months, to make any kind of change, putting that change in production. So the mindset was like really, really, really far from continuous inspection and adaptation from the market. Yeah. And when the CEO asked me, can you help us with this? I told him no. I told him, no, I can't. You are so far from there. Yeah, that turn into a company that is fast, adapting fast to the change in the market. It's going to take you a lot of years, like 20 years or more, in the best case scenario. It's like or even maybe it's not going to be possible at all. It's like if my mom, that she's 84 years old, she tells me I want to become a professional ballet dancer. No, it's not going to happen. No, it's not going to happen. So what I did is I said, sorry, I can help you guys with this, what you want. We want to become a digital company. We want to become like a fintech. No, you can't. Sorry. And they actually, they were surprised, like, we're going to pay you. Yes, but Doesn't make any sense. You're going to waste your money. I'm going to waste my time. And I told him the only thing that we can do is create a new environment where this can happen. So I need a new building in a different place. I need maximum 4 or 5 people from the bank, but the rest were going to be newcomers. We're going to hire them from the university, not even from another bank. And we're going to declare a state of exception there. So we're going to work in a different way. We're going to train them in the Agile perspective, in the Agile mindset. We're going to train them in Scrum. We're going to train them in software development. Yeah, actually, we got a Fred George, super great developer, super great trainer, training all the developers there. And only if we have that possibility, then I will come back and help you. Okay, actually, I already spoiled the story because yes, in 2 months' time, he called me and he said, we have the new office. We are doing some renovations. If you come here, please, and help us hiring the people, we're going to create a software development environment that you were talking about. And actually we did. And the results were amazing. We got great. So in 6 months' time, we had a beautiful application. We won actually some innovation prizes in the region. So the thing is, we created a new company with a new culture, with a new process, with new processes, with new types of interaction, with a new structure. Yeah, and actually with a very enjoyable environment for the people to work on. Yeah, so that's plausible. That's something that we can do, like extract a piece of the organization, make them work different, get some results. Yeah, so the rest of the company can see these results and maybe get stimulated to create another island of happiness, right? But if we intend the whole bank to make this shift, this transformation, it's going to take so many years. It's going to be very frustrating. Yeah. So, do I mean that then we cannot do anything with big companies? Of course, but the expectations should be different. Yeah. So they do make some changes in the rest of the bank, and of course, instead of delivering every 8 months, they went into maybe delivering every 3 months. Yeah. Which is actually amazing improvement for them. Yeah. Of course, not as good as in the other area where they were able to deliver every week or less. Yeah. But I think this should be coherent with our expectations. Yeah. We wanted this huge, fast change and creating this like startup-like environment. Build it aside. Don't try the whole thing to work as a startup, because it's not going to happen. It's too big. And also there are too many interests. There's politics also. Politics is a very important part of a big organization. Yeah. So we all know that agile and big is like oil and water. Yeah. So big projects. In agile, we don't build big projects. Yeah. We don't do that. We validate business hypothesis in the smallest amount of time possible. We work on products to validate business hypothesis. Actually, the idea of projects, in my opinion, it doesn't really match with Agile, because the idea of projects, now they change the definition though, but the idea of project, if we understand project as something to complete, yeah, where success means you complete everything. This is something that we don't do in Agile. Yeah, we don't want to complete everything in Agile. We want to maximize the return on the investment. And if while I build a project, this is a success in Agile and it's a failure in project management. Yeah, so that's why I think we should be careful with our definition of product, project, and business hypothesis. So small is critical for Agile. But what happened with politics? Big means more relevance, more budget, more money, more importance, promotions. So if I work in a big project and they have a big budget for something that I will work for in 3 years, and I can hire a lot of consultants and companies and providers and have a lot of developers. I'm important. I'm relevant in this organization. I can have my pay raise. So why should I go now and screw all this and destroy it and split it in a small business hypothesis and try small piece by small piece? Distribute control in smaller teams. Why should I do? It makes me less relevant. It's go against my own interest. I'm not gonna do that. Yeah. So I think that's right. We should be really careful with this. Oh, Ivana has a question. Finally, thank you. Yay! Thank you for reading the first question.
Hi.
Tell me.
Well, Angel, you are talking a lot, so I can't ask a question. I'm sorry. I'm just joking. I'm curious. I've never worked in a bank, but what you have been describing, and Miloš as well, reminds me maybe of a rigid sectors in other companies that I had experience with that are business oriented. So my question would be, if you have this rigid organization as banks, I suppose, are with all those regulations and whatever, how do you said that you detached or created one small hypothetical whatever department or a group of people that you experimented with Agile and Scrum and whatever. As I understood, it was software development in question. But how do you then amplify in that rigid environment? If you have proven that it's working, you said that you needed 6 months or so. So it sounds like a very quick development, I would say. And then if you would want to amplify it in the whole bank as an institution, how do you do that? I'm just wondering, in that very rigid, constrained system, as I'm just thinking of the banks are, how do you manage that without creating a chaos?
Okay. Actually, thinking on implementing on all the bank is what it will, in my opinion, in my experience, turn a chaos. Yeah.
Yeah.
So deep and narrow, I mean, choosing something that you want to do the best way possible, in this case, one area, or even creating your area, making it work the best possible, and then go for the next one. And go the same, make it the best way, work the best possible, and then go for the next one, and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's something that is an approach that you use, but not only in banking. So actually, in Chile, same country, the year after, I was hired by Falabella, which is a retail company, and I used exactly the same approach. Mm-hmm. Actually, they knew me. I mean, I think that the first day I came there, they already were looking for a new building. Yeah. The thing is, we call it innovation factory. Yeah. The thing is, it's a way to liberate from this rigidity. Yeah. Because if you want to change all this process or this legacy one by one, it's going to take you too long. Yeah. To see results. Yeah. And if you don't see results, it gets frustrating. It's frustrating. People stop doing that. Yeah. So that doesn't mean that in the meantime, while you have these islands of happiness working, the rest of the bank is not implementing any change, of course. But we need to understand that they are going into different paces. This is different pace and also different expectations. So if I have such a big organization and I want to approach that, and I want to approach one value stream that we have. And within this value stream, there's one of the interactions that we have with the customer, one of the touch points within this value stream. And we improve there. It's great. But if you think, no, I'm going to just change the whole bank as fast as possible. And even worse, I would say, in my experience, it doesn't turn into a chaos. It turns into a pretending that agile is happening. It turned into a mimic. It turned into a fake agility. Yes, we have the agility implemented. Yeah. Yeah, and I would say though that even depending on the region, Yeah, we for example, talking about Middle East, what becomes even more relevant is that somebody comes and put stamp saying that you are agile. We just want the stamp. Yeah. So this is what I would do there. Go deep and narrow. Always find volunteers. If you want to create results fast that become encouraging for the business, create this island of happiness. I see many companies that are doing this, not only in banking. Yeah, and it's a good selling point to keep on getting resources for progressively, and on a smaller pace, a slower pace. Is that improving things in the bank? Yeah. I hope that's answer your question.
Yeah. So you actually managed to create some results after 6 months already that you would buy off the other. Yeah.
Actually, no. We created results after 1 month, 1 or 2 months.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, of course. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I feel
yes,
so
it's possible.
Okay.
No, it's absolutely possible to create those results. The thing is, what are you going to approach? So there is something magical that we do in Agile, which is chunking.
Yeah, small things. Yeah.
What is what is a smaller version of that? Yeah. Because the initial thought in the person that hired me was we're going to change the whole banking application. Of course, we didn't change the whole banking application in 6 months. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But we say, okay, what is a smaller version of this improvement that we can do in 6 months? And one is this, if we only have 6 months, how would it look like? Maybe just a personal finance management system. Yeah. And if we only have 1 month, how would it look like? Maybe we just have a new overall position for the customers. Yeah. And actually, we had something like this, like new overall position in a matter of just 1 month or something like this. And it was just already visible. The good news, though, is that at that moment, the banking experience that we had in that bank, consider that it's Chile. You know, it's in South America, people still use a lot of branches. Yeah, at the time, 2015, online banking was not so popular. So the current experience was like really poor. So it was very easy to improve. So it was very easy to see something really like wow experience. You know, there were not many features. There were not many expectations. It's not that they already wanted, you know, like have mortgages and have payments and have a broker and insurance and all those products. No, they expected the very limited experiences with an overall position, just in the transactions, and not much more than that. So in 6 months, we had a complete application, of course, with a limited amount of features. Yeah, but it's still good. It was a huge leap for the current customer experience. Yeah. That's a great point. Oh,
I've never done the new organization thing, but like experimenting in a smaller part. So, for instance, when you have a very rigid, constrained system, even when you propose, let's do that in 1 branch office or 2 or 3. It can help a lot, but there is a cap because you're still in the same organization. There is a cap of what you can do. It's just that you can get that experiment, the green light maybe faster than something else. And what Angel is describing is you completely, because you created the new system, then you don't have those constraints in that system. So you can do even faster a small experiment than in this.
There is something though to consider there. Because once this island of happiness works, you can do 2 things. One is keep that as it is and create another one. Don't try to copy, just create another one. Yes, because whatever worked there, it just worked there. Now, with the same conditions, when the same constraints, when the same guardrails, create another island of happiness with their own rules, with their own vision, etc. Yeah, that's one approach. This, in my experience, is a good idea. Yeah, actually, I have to say that this even makes the company not only more agile, but also more resilient, which is something that I'm now already all the time talking about business resilience, because to me it's the next thing. But this is not topic of this. The thing is, well, it's basic. It's diversification. Yeah, if for any reason one of the areas gets destroyed, people leave, doesn't work, you have a problem, you still have independent, like soup pieces of the company, what makes your company more responsive to crisis. But anyway, this is not the topic. The other approach is, oh, it worked here, so I'm going to take the people from this island of happiness and I'm going to put them in the bank in different departments, so it will infect with the virus to the rest of the bank and everything will become agile. No, this is a disaster. Don't do that. So people that were in a place where they love their work, they love the interaction, they love the way they were doing things, you put them in different places that they are not necessarily going to love, with people that still they are not convinced that they want to work in this way. So that person is going to burn out and leave. Well, I have to say that sadly they choose that approach after I left. So, but this happens, yeah, and there is politics and interest in those things, because one of the things that two things that you need to consider as you use this approach is, one, if you have this island of happiness approach, this extraction, there is someone in the middle, and that someone in the middle is like an adapter, you know, like this, it's like this, yeah, a transformer 2022 into 5. What happens with the adapter? It gets hot, it's heated, it can burn. So that person in the middle will be attacked. Oh, you're doing this, it's gonna be too risky, it's not gonna work. How do you know that we are complying with, how do you know that we're complying with the regulation? How do you know that this is safe? So this person, if it's the only adapter in the company, is gonna receive all the heat. So you better that person try the first approach as soon as possible, otherwise it's going to explode. Yeah. This is one of the things that I wanted to tell. You know, it's important to consider that you will have this adapters. The other thing I wanted to say, I was important, but I forgot. I'm getting tired.
Well, on that note,
Welcome.
do we have other questions? We also want to see for how
Yes.
long do we want to go. One option is to maybe finish relatively soon. The other one is to go to the full hour. So any questions more? And if there are more questions, we will prolong, of course, all the way until 9. But if not, then we can maybe even start to wrap up. Ivo?
Yeah, so
Before Ivo, before you go, I already remember, it's very short. The second one is, the area is gonna make the rest of the bank look very bad. So the rest of the bank is going to attack that area, saying that the results are not reliable, that is unsafe, because it makes the other rest of the bank. So we have to be very careful with this also. Go, Ivo, sorry.
No, that's okay. So it's not a question. I just want to comment from my own experience that out of these approaches and strategies that you mentioned about finding volunteers and so I can just add on top of that in my experience and in my view, the people, the volunteers, and if you allow people to self-select and engage where they want to go, that's the very powerful kind of enabler for those positive changes. So I can only salute that this is something that we should also like always focus on, because as long as we will have more people wanting the same, that's a big power, and it's you never do it alone. It's not possible. So yeah, I've experienced one workshop which was not in a banking, but where people were just for the first time they were invited to select what they want to do, work on which project and with whom. It was amazing how energy changes in people, how people faces change, how everything changes, and how they actually work after that. it's completely something different instead of when they're being assigned to the work that they maybe don't enjoy. So that's the big change. That's it. That's my addition. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else share, ask?
But not all of you at the same time, because we get confused.
Please, not everybody. Like you all rose hands. No, not like that, please.
I think there is no questions.
Or as we say, 8 seconds of awkward silence.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's the threshold. After that, we can go. Well, okay, then we can slowly wrap up. So I think to consider is Angel and I are also doing some trainings, some of them together, some of them is Angel doing. We do have some trainings in April live in Belgrade. I would hope to see Michael there, but I do know that that's very unrealistic from Australia, right? But of course, you can contact us to see if there is another venue that you want to have. So just quickly to share that, and also for the members of the community who are in Belgrade, Angel and I will be in the city, so we are happy to maybe go to a bar and just have a chat around and just sharing experience and stories. And thanks, Michael, for the comments. As for people who might be interested in trainings, we have 2 in April. One is Coaching Agile Leadership, and the other one is Certified Agile Coaching Fundamentals. So for Agilists that want to develop or hone their skills in coaching. Both are there's a lot of practical exercises and a lot of stories shared. We have special prices for a group of at least 2 people that you can see in the picture, and the special price for if you pick all 2 trainings. As we did mention that Angel has, both Angel and I have quite a lot of list of certificates. This is one of the things that both trainings have certificates from Agile, from Angel's own company, but also from Scrum Alliance and from ICF. So if you're already a professional coach or you are in need of points, right, both of these do count. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call or ask right now.
Actually, maybe I would like to tell a little bit more about what are you going to get for each of these classes. No. So in the CAL class, what you're going to get is a specific conversational instrument for transformation, leadership, but so to get your teams to be more effective, to have a very clear purpose, to agree on the context, to, well, achieve results that maybe in this moment you're not capable to achieve from a leadership perspective. So this training, the first, the CAL, is if you want to maximize your influence with your teams and in your organizations. You are into transformation, into enable your teams. This is the training for you. How about coaching? Coaching, we're going to focus on one specific type of skills. So this is more about skills and competences. So we're going to learn how a coaching process works and what the skills and competences are required to perform from this stance with your team and with your organization. So if you are a Scrum Master or if you are an Agile coach, and you want to use this coaching approach that Miloš was mentioning before to enable in your teams having the becoming a high performance team to enable in your organization to decide, so all the other organization to decide by themselves the way in which they can continue growing in their agile journey. So if you want to enable leadership in others, then the coaching is for you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Angel, Miloš. Thank you all for your attention. Have a nice evening, and for the next meetup, follow our channels, well-known channels, actually. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.